Okay, hi everyone, welcome to Practical English. So I am sat down, I got my glasses on, I'm at my computer. It can only mean that today we are going to be looking at another one of your IELTS essays. So today I have the Task 2 essay from Adayemi, and in the last video I looked at his Part 1 essay. So we're going to see what's going on in this one here. So let's jump straight in. Okay, so this is the essay that we're working with. And the essay question says, in some countries, owning a home rather than renting one is very important for people. Why might this be the case? Do you think this is a positive or a negative situation? Okay, and the answer goes like this. In some countries, many argue that building your own apartment rather than renting it is very essential and significant because it helps to lift the burden of having to look for house rent to pay the building owner either monthly, quarterly, or yearly. However, if people are not bought financially, they live in rented houses. Building your own apartment is far more better than renting. It means acquiring your own land to build a befitting structure of your desire. For example, one may decide to building a house, which will help to lessen the burden and fear that comes with yearly payment of house rent by tenants or occupants of the building. The rest of mind that comes with having your own house to rent is huge. This gives a chance to attend to other needs that may arise and helps one to focus on them, because shelter is the first need of man. However, renting apartments helps the middle income earners. These are people who earn averagely, and this may not be enough to help them own their own house. For instance, living in major cities comes with some increases in the standard of living. Owning an apartment may be difficult compared with other needs that need to be met. It becomes impossible, if not difficult, for such a category of people to get one for themselves. With that, other needs can be met and one will not suffer for the other. To conclude, it is a good sign for one to own a house, as it brings relief to your mind being the owner. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is have a look at what kind of a grade this might get in the IELTS. Now, when you're grading the IELTS, you have 4 different parts to look at, and the first one is called task response. Task response is all about how well developed the ideas are, and also about how well you answer the question. So in this essay, I think Adayemi has done quite a good job with developing his ideas. So he gives some good reasons for all of his ideas in here. However, when we look at this essay and we look at the question type here, we can actually see this is a 2-question question. All right, we've got 2 things they want us to talk about here. The first one is, why is it in the case in some countries that people want to own a home rather than rent one? And the second thing is, do we think this is a good or bad thing? When you have a 2-question question, the structure is actually quite easy. What you want to do is look at the first question and then answer that question in the first body paragraph, and then look at the second question and answer this question in the second body paragraph. Unfortunately, we've not really done that here. So I don't think this essay can get a score higher than a 5 for task response. The next part of IELTS grading is called cohesion and coherence. And so coherence and cohesion is all about paragraphing and also about how your essay flows together using things like discourse markers. Now, even though these paragraphs aren't really on the topic they should be on, they actually are quite well put together. They have quite a strong coherence within each one. They don't float off onto different ideas. So that's quite good. And also some of these discourse markers, we have a however, we have, for instance, we have some good another however up here. We have some good discourse markers around, which is nice to see. So I think this one might even get a 6 for coherence and cohesion, which is pretty good. The third category for IELTS writing is lexical resource. A lexical resource is all about the vocabulary you use, how well it's used, and if it's sort of appropriate to the situation. Now, we've got a bit of a mix in here. So some of the vocab here is quite advanced, like things like acquire, I really like. Occupants, tenants, I really like. Burden is good. Middle income earners, I really like. I also really like standard of living here. I think that's very nice vocab to see in this essay. However, there are also a few little mistakes with the vocabulary that maybe could be improved on. So overall for lexical resource, I think this would get a 5 or a 6, depending on how generous your examiner is feeling, because Adayemi has attempted some more complex or rarer vocab in here, and most of it is quite appropriate, but there are also a few vocab mistakes as well, which we'll take a look at in a bit. The last thing in here, however, is the grammar, and I think this is the one where the essay slips up a little bit. So if we have a look at this paragraph here, this is all one sentence. This paragraph is all one sentence, and this paragraph is all one sentence. Actually, all of the paragraphs here are just one sentence each, and that's really, really not good. We really need to get the sentencing right for this essay to do better. So that's the first thing I want to say. The other thing here is there are quite a few other grammar mistakes. So I think overall this can only really get a 4 for the grammar. In conclusion, we have a 5 for task response, a 6 for coherence and cohesion, a 5 or a 6 for lexical resource, and a 4 for grammar. So overall, I think this essay will be getting a 5, but I do think there are a few easy fixes that could get this essay to a much higher grade quite quickly. So let's take a look at what those might be. Okay, I want to have a look at a few grammar mistakes before we jump into anything else. So the first one I think is quite interesting is up here. The essay says, it is very essential and significant. Now, essential is a strange word to use very with, because essential already means you can't do without it. So something can't really be very essential. So we'll just get rid of the very there, because essential is already a very strong word. And I would also actually get rid of the significant here as well, because I think significant is less strong than essential. So if we say essential, we don't need to say essential and significant. The meaning is similar, except essential is a stronger version. So that's nice and simple. It's fine to just say, rather than renting, it is essential. We also need to get rid of the it here to make that make sense. Okay, and a similar thing is going on here. Better is already... The next grammar thing I want to have a look at in this essay is more better. Now, better is already a word that means more good than something else. So we don't need to say more better. And in fact, we can't say more better. So for this, I'm just going to go through, I'm just going to get rid of this more here. And now that looks much nicer. So saying building your own apartment is far better than renting sounds really nice. Okay, and the last grammar thing that I think is quite instructive is earn averagely. Actually here it's much better to say earn an average wage is a much more common way to say this. I know what you mean, but it's better to say earn an average wage. So I think that's a few simple changes, but that's going to improve our grammar score to a 5 or a 6, which is really nice to see. And I think the lexical resource might be increased to up to a 6 as well from that. Now, in terms of the task response, I don't want to change the content too much because then it becomes my essay, not Adayemi's essay. But I might have a look at these topic sentences and see what I can do with these to make them answer the question a little bit better. So the way to do this is to look at these two questions, right? So whenever you have an IELTS question that has two questions in it, you always need to make sure your first paragraph answers question 1 and your second paragraph answers question 2. Now, if we go back and take a look at these two paragraphs, they don't quite do that. So how can we fix it? Now, the first question is, why might it be the case that in some countries, owning a home rather than renting one is very important? So we can change this topic sentence to more accurately answer that question. Okay, so I've changed this to one reason people prefer to own a home is that they don't have to pay rent. And I think this is a little bit closer to answering this question at the top here. And the second one is, do you think this is a positive or a negative situation? Okay, so if we change this second paragraph to, however, this is negative because many people can't afford to buy a home, that's also kind of answering this second question here. Now, like I said, I don't want to go in and change the content of these paragraphs too much because then it stops being Adeyemi's essay. But I do think if he did go through and change these to make them a little bit more about those topic sentences, that will be absolutely ideal, and that will push up the score for task response as well. The last thing I'll do here then is I will have a look at the introduction and conclusion for task response. So I want to get rid of this bit, and I want to kind of introduce what the essay is going to say a little bit more. So I might write something along the lines of, okay, so here I've changed this and I've kind of explained what the essay is going to do. So I've written, this essay argues first that this is popular because it helps people avoid rent, and second, that it has a detrimental impact because not everyone can afford to buy a home. Now, the topic sentence and the outline for this kind of essay can sometimes be the same sentence. So this one not only tells you what the point of view is going to be, but it also tells you what the rest of the essay is going to do. Now, for the conclusion, all we need to do is basically repeat these main points again. So we can write something along the lines of, okay, so for the conclusion, I've changed that to conclude, in many countries, owning your own home is important because it helps people to avoid rent, but this can be harmful because not everyone can afford to own a home. So we've had a good look at this essay and we've made several changes to it. I know this essay still isn't perfect, but I think it's much closer to a 6 than it was at the start. Sometimes when you have an essay like this, it's quite difficult to improve the grade a lot without making so many changes that it wouldn't really be the same essay anymore, okay? And that's most because of this task response type stuff. Like, we really need to make sure this essay is answering those 2 questions. So the 2 biggest takeaways for me in looking at this essay are, when you have a 2-part question or a question with 2 questions in it, make sure your first paragraph answers the first question and the second paragraph answers the second question. And the second thing is, please, please, please always use sentences when you're writing these essays. Don't have these big, long run-on things with lots and lots of commas. So I hope that's really helpful for you, Adeyemi. If you'd like me to take a look at your essay, just get in touch. The link is in the description where you can do that. Thank you.